It's Friday night in the A, and you know what that means. Kelly Price and Tori McElhaney coming at you on Rise Up Tonight, presented by AT&T.
Fridays just feel so much better when you're still basking in the glory of beating your rival, Tori.
You know, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, the Falcons beat the Saints. So honestly, everything's right in the world, especially in Atlanta. At least.
Yeah, and this one was the first for the Falcons over the Saints in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium since 2017. That was the first year of the stadium's existence. So it snapped New Orleans' 5-game winning streak in the A, and for that, we're all giving thanks this holiday season. So let's huddle up about it, y'all.
Let's huddle up with Kelly and Tori on the world of Falcons football.
In the last 3 years, the Falcons have just 4 wins decided by more than a single possession, aka 8 points. That is crazy. So tight ball games, not usually the Falcons' specialty, but this one, they needed it, Tori. And you could tell how much this really meant to the guys with how emotional they were getting on the field after making plays, kind of showing some of that edge we talked about last week, that nastiness with that Todd McClure tweet that we talked about. But most of all, just stopping the losing skid, getting a win out of the bye. And how much did Atlanta need a team win like this to rally behind for this kind of backstretch of the season here?
Yeah, so this game really did feel like a win or go home situation for the Falcons, both in terms of the emotional implication of beating a rival and also for first place standings in the NFC South. In the locker room after the game, I felt like players were pretty candid in a way they haven't been before about how losing their last 3 games before the bye really affected them. Caden Ellis said these were 3 games we should have won, 3 games they almost expected to win if they played to their potential. Sunday's game over the Saints was as close to that potential as we've seen in a month.
Big part of the dub, NFC Defensive Player of the Week, Jessie Bates. In this 9-point game, the Falcons scored 14 points off of 2 turnovers, both attributed to number 3. And while the defense did give up some explosives, they tightened up in the red zone, the tightest of all spots, allowing 0 of 5 conversions. The 3rd time this season that Atlanta has kept an opponent at 0% red zone efficiency. And after a few tough weeks for this defense, they might have needed a rebound more than any other unit, Tori.
I honestly couldn't agree more, and this really was a truly bend but don't break for this defense. Sure, they gave up over 400 yards of total offense to the Saints, but if you're going to give up something, I'd rather it be yards and not touchdowns. After the last few games, this defense struggled to stop Will Levis in his first start, Josh Dobbs, who didn't know his receivers' names, and Kyler Murray in his first game back from injury. They needed a solid performance against a veteran like Derek Carr, and they were as solid as we've seen them in the red zone yet.
Right, and another unit that played a big part in this win, the run game we know and love, y'all. Atlanta had a season-high 228 rushing yards on Sunday, extending their streak of 100 or more rushing yard games to 6. The only team with more right now is Baltimore with 12, and that's all great, right? Because the thing that I point to here is the use of all 3 of their running backs, Algier, Robinson, Patterson, in tandem to get to that end goal of wearing down the opponent on the ground.
Okay, y'all, this is the ground game that we finally were looking for. It finally looked like how I thought it was going to look when the Falcons drafted Bijan Robinson 7 months ago. Seriously, this was it. Supplementing CP's angry runs with Tyler's bowling ball tendencies with Bijan's splash. It was a rushing attack that had a little something for everyone, and can I just say, finally. And let's give credit where credit is due to this offensive line, too. They were displacing guys like Cam Jordan. It's a dominance I've missed seeing from them, and I think everyone should be hoping that this performance is a sign of good things to come.
Speaking of that backfield trio, they normally dominate this segment, but this week some other Falcons shined bright in the fashion department. We are walking in, presented by Wells Fargo. We start with the Syracuse product, who's headed back to New York this week. Matthew Bergeron, the Pro Football Focus highest graded offensive lineman in the entire NFL in Week 12. No coincidence. He's our highest graded Falcon in the fits department as well. Just a clean window pane suit, no tie, but most importantly, the shades, pulling it all together for the swag.
Man, our favorite Canadian did not come to play with this fit. I mean, can I just say he's playing as well as this fit is looking. Very cool and classy, sir.
Very cool. I think this may be John Fitzpatrick's walk-in and debut, Tori. Snaps for that. But also, I did not expect him to have this insane ice going on here. I am here for it, though. The 50 years of hip-hop swag. How do I get one of these shirts is my question.
Okay, I don't know how true this is, so don't take this as gospel, but I heard he lost a bet, and that's why he had the chain especially.
That makes sense.
Right? These guys don't bet with money, but with embarrassment. So I heard through the grapevine that this was his punishment. If that isn't the case, well, Fitz, this is a choice.
This is a choice. I think it worked out, though.
Yeah.
All right, QB1 with an A1 fit. The throwback uniforms we saw Sunday are, as we know, the best uniforms, and thus the throwback merch is the best team merch. Also, this was probably not planned, but it is very satisfying to me how the Falcons font on the jacket corresponds with that on his T-shirt. My OCD is very happy looking at that.
Absolutely same. This is incredibly satisfying for our perfectionist tendencies. Honestly, no notes, Des. This works.
So nice. Look at that.
Yeah.
Finally, this game's MVP getting all the superlatives this week, and now a best dressed nod. Can we get a little commotion for the accessorizing that Jesse Bates has going on here? He takes a clean all black ensemble, gives us all kinds of ice up top on his wrist, but the best, the JB3 Just Believe chain.
Okay, and I don't know if you could tell, but how could we overlook the shoes too? There was a pop of blue in there.
Yes.
So chef's kiss Jesse.
We do love that. All right, number 3 has played his way to talk some ish out there on the field, but which Falcon has the worst trash talk? That is the subject of our question of the week.
Worst trash talk? Like bad trash talk.
The worst trash talker.
Oh, the worst at it?
Of course, the most trash talkers are on the defensive side.
AK. Yeah, for sure.
Just sweet.
Yeah, it's just his voice. I was gonna say me, but then again, because I don't really trash talk unless like you really just say something stupid.
It has to be Caleb McGarry. Yeah.
Any reason?
Just because he's a weird trash talker. Like, he'll say something that just has you thinking, like, what?
Bijan. Bijan Robinson.
I couldn't imagine like Bijan trying to talk trash though. He's such a nice guy. But man, he a dog competitor. But
I guess he doesn't need the trash talk.
Yeah,
he just
really
does
don't
his
need
thing.
to, but if he did, I'd be like, Bijan, what are you talking about?
It's true. I really couldn't see Bijan saying something mean to someone, but my favorite there was the Caleb McGarry answer that he says something weird. He's playing like a psychological game. Now I really want to know what the things are that he's saying.
Right. What is it? Play chess, not checkers. I feel like that's what Caleb McGarry's probably doing. But yeah, no, Bijan, he's too nice.
All right, coming up later on the show, one of the guys behind one of my favorite Georgia institutions stops by. Chris Herron of Creature Comforts, Big Dogs, and Falcons fan. We're talking about all that later in the show.
Plus, Calais Campbell is taking the legacy of his 100th sack from the football field to the community. That story is coming up next on Rise Up Tonight.
Rise Up Tonight is presented by AT&T and brought to you by the Georgia Lottery. Today could be the day. The Home Depot, how doers get more done. Mercedes-Benz, the best of nothing. And Truist, when you start with care, you get a different kind of bank. It's time to rise up Atlanta. Kelly and Tori are back on your home for Falcons football. Fox 5 Atlanta.
Earlier this year, Calais Campbell notched sack number 100, a milestone he's celebrating on and off the field. His 100 sack give back is an initiative to donate $100,000 to teachers across America to commemorate those 100 career sacks. As we rise up for Atlanta, brought to you by Truist. This week, he surprised 25 Centennial Academy Charter School teachers with $500 grants and $100 worth of school supplies, as well as sweet tickets to the December 10th Falcons game against the Bucs.
I feel like so many times teachers don't get enough appreciation, don't get enough love, and I know that dealing with kids, in the moment going through hard times and stuff, it's not always easy. Dealing with parents sometimes, just there's a lot of things that I feel like teachers don't really get enough love as they deserve, and so I feel like it's one of the biggest things for me is I want to make sure they feel appreciated because I know how important each teacher is.
I just love how he keeps that going even weeks after the 100th sack even happened. Speaking of good things keeping them going, the Falcons really found and kept momentum on Sunday. And you wrote in your notebook this week on AtlantaFalcons.com that it felt like the first time this season we've seen the Falcons do that. So how did they do that?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to something that you talked about at the top of the show. They scored points off turnovers. Okay, yes, Jesse Bates returned that interception for a touchdown all by himself, but it still counts towards 14 points scored after red zone turnovers by the Saints. This is something the Falcons team has been missing in the last month. They've struggled to put significant points on the board in the offensive drive directly following a turnover or key defensive stop. To see them march 95 yards down the field and score a touchdown after Jesse Bates' forced fumble, that's a difference maker for this group.
Well, we've got some momentum to keep up of our own. Stay tuned for the hot takes that are simmering on the back burner until our final segment.
Plus, we go in the nest to talk dogs, craft beer, and much more with the head of Creature Comforts Brewery coming up next.
It's almost game time, Falcons fans. When the Falcons sack the opposing QB at home, you'll score a BOGO free Big Zack snack meal the day after the game. Valid online only at Atlanta area stores. Welcome back to Rise Up Tonight. Let's head in the nest with Kelly, Tori, and this week's special guest, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz.
So excited to have in the nest Chris Herron, the co-founder and CEO of Creature Comforts, the official craft beer of UGA Athletics. Congratulations on that. Beer and sports obviously go hand in hand, but as a kid growing up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, I'm curious for you what sports in the state mean to you.
It means a lot. I grew up playing sports here in Georgia, and being a fan of Atlanta sports teams, which is anyone my age who has been a fan of Atlanta sports teams, it can be challenging at times, but it means a lot.
Creature Comforts, I feel like, has become such a staple around here, especially for me. I went to UGA, so Athens is also home for me too, in a certain extent, but I've always been curious, where does Creature Comforts, the name, come from? Like, what was the inception of it?
So the inception is really some artwork that a person was doing for one of our other co-founders who was making homebrew, which he called Creature Comforts. But as we grew and decided to become a real business and turn this into our official brewery name, it really came to be sort of the end of a journey for us, and that is one that starts with craving curiosity, which we think helps you uncover your passions, working those passions into your life, and then eventually when you do that, you're happier and you can actually enjoy the Creature Comforts. And so for us, Creature Comforts as a brewery name was really a journey we had been on, and it was sort of a landing spot. So the brewery itself was our Creature Comfort. It was kind of our, snuggie or warm blanket out of the dryer in the morning. It was, it was just our thing.
I think a lot of people can say the same about the beers, being that snuggly, warm feeling. For me, one of my favorite beers actually ever is Tropicalia, one of your obviously signature beers. We actually had it at our wedding. I was telling you, we had a different craft beer from everywhere that we've lived, my husband and I, and that was our kind of Atlanta area one that we had. So big fan of that. I want to know how you came up with that name and how you kind of come up with all of these brew names.
Tropicalia was actually named after a Brazilian music movement that was going on that he was really into, and it was also sort of this play on the beer itself. IPAs are typically a bit more bitter, and David really had this idea and vision of an IPA that was a lot less bitter and leaning more into the tropical notes and tropical characteristics that you can get out of hops. And so it was kind of both an homage to the style, but also a reference to something that he was really interested in at the time.
So, I mean, we can't talk about Creature Comforts without talking about Athens, Georgia, or just Georgia in general. So what was it about this area that you felt like you could really create something and grow it here?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just this is home. This is where all of us are from, and so we wanted to do something, in our home. And Athens was just and is an incredible city, really for brand building. You have this vibrant community of people that are coming in all the time and then leaving, and then they take that with them wherever they go. Yeah. And so I think Athens really is a great place for trying to build a brand. You've got people coming of age age there, and then once they're 21, getting the opportunity to enjoy the beverage, and then, like I said, wherever they move, hopefully they have a really fond memory of it. And so I think Athens has just been, it's been a big piece of our story.
That's a good point of having the students kind of go on and bring that with them wherever they go. That's a good point.
Yeah, they take their team, University of Georgia, and then hopefully they, now that we're the official craft beer partner of UGA, hopefully it all lines really well for them.
So one of the biggest news coming from Creature Comforts at this point is y'all have actually gone to the West Coast and y'all have opened up in LA. So tell us a little bit about that process and why y'all wanted to do this in the first place.
We want to get our beer in front of as many people as possible, and the LA was a really unique connection in that they were filming the Marvel Avengers movies in Atlanta, and the cast of that show, of that movie, which ended up going to be the biggest movie ever, became big fans. They were drinking Tropicalia after shooting, and Joe Russo reached out to us to just have a dinner, and that led to them ending up putting the beer in the movie. It's what Thor drinks in the movie. And then when they went back to the West Coast, they found out that there was a spot zone for a brewery where they have their studio, and he called us and said we'd love for it to be a Creature Comforts. And so, sometimes you just stay open-handed to the world, and you say, okay, Joe, we'll check into it. And so he was really instrumental in helping us find that location and bring it out there. And it's been awesome. We just opened 2 weeks ago, and it was Georgia-Florida football game weekend, and we had about 200 plus UGA alumni come, and it was just amazing.
So talking about the Dogs, we obviously have to do that with the SEC Championship coming up. Right. What do you love so much about this team? I mean, obviously there's a lot to love with all these wins that they've strung in a row here. Talk about the Dogs a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting a little bit under acknowledged, to be honest with you. I think they've got a really good team, and what they're trying to do, winning another championship is unprecedented and something very difficult. And the pressure that they're executing through is really remarkable.
When you talk about, you're a kid growing up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and for you, I know this is a Falcons show. Was there ever a memory that stuck out to you watching any of the teams of the past 20, 25 years?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up when Jesse Tuggle was still running around hitting people, and that was awesome. And then, the Vic era was just a magical time for Falcons football. And, I think my favorite was just, watching Jamal Anderson, teach us all how to do the Dirty Bird. And then, my favorite time of the Falcons was the first 3 periods of the 2017 Super Bowl.
There you go,
That was great.
A lot of people
that was great. I like to tell people we won that game 3-1.
Right.
We won 3 quarters.
Oh, that's awesome. Thinking of this current team, who are some players that you really like watching this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bijan has been like kind of the exciting piece of that. Bates, has been amazing to have him come down here as well. And that's sort of both sides of the ball. Overall, I think we've got a really good team. I think we're making a lot of progress in the right direction. As a Falcons fan, you always, temper your expectations. And the season started off really strong. But I think we've been moving in the right direction, and I'm excited about the season.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time, Chris Herron. If you want to catch the full conversation, we'll post the whole thing on fox5atlanta.com, and we'll be right back on Rise Up Tonight.
Hey Atlanta, this is Head Crack talking, and you watching Rise Up Tonight, presented by AT&T.
It's like I don't get caught up in whatever narrative is after 4 weeks of the daily narratives. You can almost write some of these narratives and live and die every week by the narratives. I don't use that lingo. That's the sensational monument, like the scene with the dudes chasing the guy down from Happy Gilmore. Run to give away our scheme. What the hell is going on? Now you're really trying to put me on the hot seat here. Some narratives.
No sacks from the ex-Saints, not a spotless turnover margin from Desmond Ridder, but Coach, we're only trying to manifest positive narratives.
We are trying so hard here. We're trying. We really are.
Points for positivity, I guess. All right, with the Jets on deck, I think it's time for Jesse Bates to go back to back. I am hot taking that number 3 gets picked another pick six this Sunday. The Jets have thrown 10 interceptions versus 7 touchdowns, and they're on their third-string quarterback right now. I mean, we all saw the Hail Mary last week that Tim Boyle threw at halftime. It was kind of hilarious. The odds are high this happens again, and my money is on Bates.
All right, so my turn. I absolutely loved what I saw from the Falcons' three-headed monster in the backfield against the Saints. And I need to see more of Bijan, Tyler, and CP. I'm craving it like I'm craving that uneaten apple pie currently still in my fridge. So I'm putting it out there. Let's see another top rushing performance from this offense. I'm talking 200-plus rushing yards. Let's see it. I need it. Let's go.
I like it. And just with a couple more seconds here, Falcons haven't won back-to-back games since week 1 and week 2, which is crazy. Yeah. How do they find more consistency?
Do what you did last week. You were so hungry for a win coming into that Saints game. Do it again. Find that consistency to be able to bring 1 week into the next week.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, thanks for staying up really late with us tonight. I'm Kelly Price. This is Tori McElhaney. We'll be here back with you next week. For now, good night.